and I can go back and then you can share with the participants. That is also possible.
That would be wonderful, Ashish. We really, really thank you for taking out time for us. And Rachna, maybe we can close Dr. Ashish's session now. And sir, thank you
Yes,
so
ma'am.
much for being there with us.
Thanks a lot. Wish you all the very best for the rest of this day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so
Bye.
much, Mr. Ashish Mukherjee, sir. It was an insightful and a wonderful session. So now it's my absolute pleasure to move on to the next speaker of the day. So we welcome Dr. Mayura Deshpande, the Medical Director for the UK and Ireland at Ferring Pharmaceuticals. Dr. Deshpande is an accomplished physician with extensive experience across clinical practice, research, and medical affairs leadership. She began her journey with the NHS, later serving as principal investigator at Medinova Research, where she has led several ethically driven and patient-focused clinical trials. Over the years, she has held key leadership roles with renowned global pharmaceutical companies such as Almirall, Lundbeck, Janssen, and Eisai, contributing significantly to medical strategy, evidence generation, and scientific engagement across multiple therapy areas, including immunology, neuroscience, and oncology. She also serves on board of examiners at the Faculty of Pharmaceutical Medicine, reflecting her commitment to advancing professional standards and nurturing future leaders in the field. Today at Ferring Pharmaceuticals, Dr. Deshpande continues to embody the true essence of partnership, building meaningful connections between science, strategy, and patient care. Before we begin, I would like to inform that we have a Q&A session after this, so please keep your questions ready. And now we are delighted to have with us this afternoon. Please join me in warmly welcoming Dr. Mayura Deshpande to share her thoughts on medical affairs, a journey towards partnership. The stage is all yours, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Obviously, I'm in the UK, so it's early in the morning. I've just had my cup of tea, but I hope that you are all ready to get a little bit more understanding about medical affairs. So obviously, this is a health economics real world evidence conference. We just heard our renowned speaker earlier talking about collaborative working. And I think one of the essential collaborative partners is our medical affairs team. So I'm just going to present like a very top overview of what does medical affairs mean, how did we come about, what are some of the activities we do along the life cycle of the drug, but also where we are on the journey to becoming a partner, strategic partner. So, Rachna, sorry, Richard, do I share my screen or how does it work?
Yes, ma'am,
Try
you can
sharing,
share
Dr.
your
Mayura.
screen.
See, there's a green button at the bottom of the screen with
Yeah, so yeah, I can do it. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay. And just let me know when you can see my screen.
We can.
Okay,
you can make it full screen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks, Dr. All yours.
Brilliant. All right. Thank you so much. So again, very warm welcome for everyone, all the participants to this conference. And also thank you so much for inviting me as a speaker here. It's really nice to kind of be able to share my experience of what medical affairs has been, how we are currently evolving, and what I would see medical affairs to be in the future. So I'm just going to kind of speak for about hopefully 25-30 minutes, but I would like to have a lot of time for Q&A. And again, Rich, I'm more than happy to kind of answer any questions as we go beyond even the rest of the conference. I'm more than happy for people to drop me an email. So the title of my talk is Journey to Partnership, and I'm hoping that as we go along the presentation, you would understand what I mean by that. So before we go into the presentation, maybe I can ask a quick question and people can put it in the chat. Does anyone know or have a very vague idea of roughly how long it takes for a drug to come out from the clinical development to be marketed in the market? Roughly how long is the stage of clinical development? Any idea? 15? Years. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's roughly about it. It takes somewhere around 10 to 15 years. And it's a really, really intense process. So we start somewhere in a lab, in a petri dish, or under some AI generated model where they come up with a really exciting biochemically synthesized molecule. And then obviously they go through the different stages of clinical development. As you can see from the slide here, we start somewhere around like 10,000 molecules. And then after 15 years of just development, it's about a drug, one drug, which actually gets to the marketing. So it's a really intense process. There are multiple teams involved. And I think where you probably will feel is medical affairs probably doesn't fit into this, but where we are now currently moving, medical affairs actually fits into very early clinical development stages as well. So we are now actually the bridge between R&D, so research and development, and commercial. And why I say that is because we have the expertise in science. We have the expertise in understanding of the therapy area. We have the expertise from the disease perspective. We have our major kind of stakeholder, which are the patients. So we understand their needs, the unmet needs. We also understand the marketplace. So we essentially can feed into R&D, is in maybe protocol development or endpoints decision making and things like that. We are obviously involved in kind of facilitating sites, initiation of sites, and also involved in clinical trials. So right from when the clinical trials start to right from when till up to the drug is where the drug is marketed, I think the medical affairs is integral part of the entire process. We are involved in education. We are involved in making strategic decisions. We are involved in having stakeholder interactions. And when I say that, it's internal and external. And then we are also involved, as we heard earlier, Dr. Mukherjee saying about real world evidence, integrated evidence. And I think we are, again, a very integral part of that as well. So we really are kind of the bridge between R&D and commercial. And this is how I see medical affairs. So this is a very personal representation of medical affairs. I think it's very commonly understood amongst the medical affairs fraternity that we have different pillars and which are our strengths and which are kind of our areas of expertise. But this is my personal thinking about where we need to work, in which parts we need to work as a medical affairs team. So at the top is our main stakeholder, the patients or the caregivers. Because we work across different therapy areas, sometimes we can't forget, for example, if you're working in dementia, you cannot forget caregivers. So if you're developing a drug, maybe you need to definitely consider the unmet need for the patients, but also consider unmet need for the caregivers as well. What can we do to maybe help them? What could be some of their concerns when they're looking after or caring for these patients? So the first one is leadership. As I said, we are involved. We are a strategic partner in talking about strategic plans, brand plans, and we are involved in all the governance. So, for example, looking after the entire processes, looking after compliance. In the UK, it's a very highly regulated industry. Pharmaceutical companies have to follow a PMCP or ABPI code of practice, which is really, really highly regulated code of practice, which does come down from FPA code of practice. So we have to essentially set up that governance. So that is also a job of medical affairs. Data generation, I think we have been talking about this for most of the morning. But medical affairs is key partners in understanding what data needs to be generated. What is the unmet need? Where is the gap? How can we get that developed? Is it through a SLR? Is it through a consensus statement? Is it a white paper? There are multiple ways of developing evidence. So that's essentially where medical affairs comes in for data generation. But we don't stop at data generation. We also have to do something called as data dissemination planning. So what do you do once the data is there? Of course, one way is to use it for your market access application, but how then you utilize it for your marketing team. So you have to also consider data dissemination plans. And that is basically data communication. So what do we do with all this data we have? How do we communicate it in the right and the compliant way? So what kind of claims do we add in our marketing materials? Which kind of data is important for our healthcare professionals to know? Which data in which form needs to be presented to different stakeholders? So all of that is also a key expertise that medical affairs brings. One thing is also important when we are thinking about all these things is insights. We all know the market is very, very quickly evolving. So there is a very high pace of medicines coming in. There's a data. I mean, if you search PubMed today for any therapy area and then you do the same search a week later, I can guarantee you there are at least 2 or 3 more papers added to the PubMed. And that just shows that there's just so much activity happening in this space, which is really good because we are all about evidence generation. We are all about evidence decision making. But I think for us as as medical affairs kind of expertise people, one thing we are also kind of important, or one thing important for us to do is how we bring the insights, how we share the insights, and actually what do the insights tell us? What do we need to do? How do we need to change our strategy? Because the market is saying something else, the insights are saying something else. We don't want to be stuck in our house where we say, this is our strategy, and now we're going to follow it regardless of what happens to the market. So it's like a big ship which you're constantly turning while you're in it. So it's a medical affairs job to make sure that we are bringing that insights. And the reason for that is, as I said, we are scientific experts. We understand the disease area better. We understand the unmet need of the patients and the caregivers. So we are best placed people to go and have this conversation with healthcare professionals, ask them questions, what's going to be important for you, what's going to be important for your patients, bring that back, and then put different tactics in place. Could be, we can do a evidence generation activity. You can do something like a educational meeting. So how do we address that unmet need? How do we now actually address that insight that we have captured? So that is also a medical affairs expertise. And stakeholder engagement, I think it's kind of absolutely imperative in today's world that you cannot be in a siloed function. You have to work with your peers, you have to work with different functions, marketing, market access, sales team. You have to work with everyone internally, but externally, there are just so many stakeholders that you constantly have to keep in mind when you're doing any project. So that's again something that medical affairs is really well placed to kind of do at multiple levels. And below all of this, obviously, you have your metrics, which is very important because you need to be able to actually define what I have done. That has that brought any value? Should I continue doing it? Should I change it in any way? Compliance, as I say, most of the industry across the world is highly regulated. We have different codes in different parts of the country. In UK, we follow the PMCPA. So we have to ensure that everything we do is as per compliance. And then we also have to make sure that we have our own talent, which is developed, and our own capabilities, which are developed. So again, the underlying training for the team. So these are how I see the medical affairs pillars. So our priorities are critical priorities. As I said, cross-functional governance. We cannot work in a siloed function because everything, as I said earlier, we're the bridge between R&D and commercial. So everyone in between is a stakeholder. So we have to make sure we are able to partner with every single function and actually work with them to define their needs and how can we meet their needs, and also at the same time managing our stakeholders, our main stakeholders, which are our patients. So we are involved in doing brand plan activities. We are involved in doing multiple stakeholder engagement plans for our different, say, for example, if you're looking at a market access submission, then who will be our stakeholders, working with them for clinical overviews or expert statements and things like that. Formalized process, we are very important in kind of keeping processes in place. And that actually helps to kind of help with the governance, because if there's no process in place, then people are doing different things. It's one of the kind of the challenging tasks of actually bringing everyone together. And I think medical affairs is really good at doing that because we set processes. We cannot forget technology. The world is moving fast, faster than I can move myself. But it's all about, I think a few years ago, it was about omni-channel. I don't know if you've heard that phrase, but it was more around you can't just have activities which are in person. You have to have like a digital asset to it. So you have to start doing like some digital things, social media interactions, and then you still have to keep your face-to-face interactions. But now it's all about AI, and we have to kind of make sure that we bring somewhere the AI functions which will kind of align with our governance structure. And it's not very easy, I have to say. I have been working with some AI organizations who are putting up some conferences in the US, and it's very difficult to see how we can get those two to match. Um, we are in most companies, medical affairs is a very lean function. And if you have heard me, we do a lot of activities. So we also need to make sure that we manage our resources better. I am a very strong believer in doing things that add value, because yes, we want to do the world. We want to do a lot of things, but what is the real value in doing two things? Maybe let's do two things, but do it really well and get a maximum value out of it. So I think sometimes we have to have that very discussion, a critical discussion about resourcing. Where do I invest my time and energy? And skills and mindset. I think this is probably something which is an evolving skill for medical affairs. We are, because we are very scientific people, most of the people in medical affairs you'll see will be either medics, scientists, or pharmacists by background. So they are very much coming from a space of patient care. They're very much coming from a science space background. So for us to kind of move in the whole spectrum and understand a little bit about business acumen, it has taken a time, and everyone goes on that journey in their own way. Even for me, I think it took me a couple of years to actually understand this whole thing about commercial. What does business acumen mean? And it's an essential skill. We cannot undo, or we can't not do it, because we are a part of a commercial working environment. So we have to kind of change and adapt to the skill and mindset. As I said, we have, internal stakeholders range from R&D to market access, commercial, marketing, sales, all of the above. But our external, and this is just, I think, a very brief representation. I'm sure I have missed somebody in there because there are just so many stakeholders we constantly have to juggle. And every stakeholder has very different expectations from you. So how do you manage it? How do you manage expectations, your external stakeholders? All the way from your product development to the life cycle management of the drug. And when I say life cycle management, when a drug is marketed, obviously you have the launch, and then you have a couple of years where the drug is properly marketed. And then after some time, the drug, there'll be generics coming in and things like that. So the drug is going to kind of go down. So that's almost like the life cycle of the product. But medical affairs has a role, and I think I'll show that in the next few slides exactly what we do. But these are some of the stakeholders we have to work with. Like, I think we've already discussed about doing market access submissions. We work very closely with our market access colleagues. We work very closely with, in the UK, NICE and SMC. So NICE, I think everyone is familiar with. It is the UK HTA body, and SMC is the Scottish HTA body. We also have one in Wales, but they normally follow the NICE guidelines or the NICE decisions. So we really work very closely with them to come up with clinical overview sections, to come up with expert statements and things like that. Regulatory authorities throughout the life cycle, when a drug is submitted, when a dossier is submitted rather to any regulatory authority, they will send a question which is called as request for information. So they'll send in loads and loads of questions. And medical affairs teams are the best place to answer those questions because, as I said, we are the only function which is the bridge between R&D and commercial. So we need to be able to understand every single question. I mean, the documents we have to sometimes read 600 pages long, but that's how we have to be. Because we are experts, that's where we are best placed. So there's just loads of stakeholders that we have to constantly manage. Patients, as I said, is at the top there. But we have to kind of make sure that our activities enable to have the value for individual stakeholders depending on what we are doing. But we have to make sure that our primary stakeholder, the patients, are always benefiting from it. So this is how medical affairs work. So what exactly we do from launch to 2 years. So when a drug is launched, essentially there's, as I said, because we have a good understanding of the drug from the clinical development phases, we are the best place to be able to actually start talking about launch plans. So we are involved in brand plans. So this is like a plan that every product will have for their own brand, for their own medicine, which involves quite a few things. There is a SWOT analysis, there is a stakeholder map, and all those things. But medical is involved critically to kind of actually bring our insights in and say, well, this is what the market is saying, this is where the unmet need is, this is what has happened with the competitors. So I think this is where we need to be doing something, because this is an unmet need which is going to help our brand, which is going to help the company, which is going to help the patients. And I think that's where we are kind of really critically placed. The insights I've already kind of talked about. We have to constantly generate insights. I mean, on a quarterly basis, we set up like something called as listening priorities, which are for our MSLs, which are medical science liaisons, who are the field-based medical affairs experts. And they are essentially constantly gathering these insights, and then we bring them back into the organization to move and change our strategy. We do have a really strong stakeholder engagement plan. And the way I work with my team to come up with the stakeholder engagement plan is to look at where the stakeholder is in their journey of what do they want, and then where we can maybe support them to get to where they want. And then we look at maybe there are different tiers of stakeholders. So maybe there are a national level, a regional level, an international level. So we kind of take maybe 5 or 6 stakeholders per year. And then we kind of work on specific plans to how can we get them from point A to point B based on what they want to achieve in their life. For example, some healthcare professionals want to be involved in publications. So if we are involved in a RWE study, then we will work with them, because then it's a give and take. We get something from their expertise, but then they get a name on the publication. So that's how we work with stakeholders. Training is something very important. We are constant. If there's any training needed in the company, I think medical affairs is the best place function to be able to deliver the training. We train the internal teams, we train our sales force, and that has to be an ongoing thing, because you can't just train them once and then forget about it, because again, as I said, market is evolution. It's an evolution of the market. You have to constantly be staying on pace of what's happening outside. So we have to constantly train everyone whenever there's a change in the market, when there's a change in a competitive landscape. Then we have to ensure that our teams are trained enough so that when we go out, we seem credible when we're having conversations. And then, as I said, we are an important partner function, because we help in material generation. We ensure that the compliance is maintained across all stages. If there's a meeting, we help in speaker briefings. And when I say by that, when we ask speakers to speak at a conference or a meeting, they want to speak about different things. But say, for example, they want to know a little bit about the data, or they want to understand a little bit about the data, then our field medical experts go in, and basically they are best placed again to kind of give them that overview of whatever this data means and work with them. There's also something called as objection handling. I think it's a very, very kind of a typical commercial activity. It's more like something like, why is my drug better than your drug? This is how marketing teams work. It's all about differentiation, because unless you are the only class of medicine out there, you're always fighting for the market share. And as I said, it's a mindset. We are in a commercial environment, so we have to be able to kind of change the way we work and think. And year to year 5 and on, it depends on the product life cycle. It depends on the product indication. But again, evidence generation becomes a main activity. We have to constantly come up with different real world evidence generation plans to be able to address the unmet need or to differentiate yourself from the other competitors. One of the other things we work on is indication expansion. So looking at, along with our regulatory teams, looking at how can we expand this current indication? Is there any unmet need that maybe our drug will be able to address? So again, this is possible because we know the drug from its clinical development stage. So we can actually work with the regulatory to look at, oh, there's an unmet need, our drug can do this, and then work on a license extension. We always, as I said, stakeholder engagement is a very, very important aspect of our role. But now the omni-channel approach is all about, it can't just be face-to-face. You have to bring in the digital aspect, you have to bring in the social media, and you have to try and reach or create a customer journey across multiple points in their life cycle, essentially. And we are, as I said, a partner function, because we provide value to all the other functions in everything that we do. So where we are heading is, as I said, the patient is at the center of everything that we do. We focus on the disease. We don't forget our patients. We don't forget the holistic care that a patient needs, because I think if you look at any indication, any patient, there is of course the treatment, but then there is a holistic care that is needed, and medical affairs needs or has to think about the holistic care. It's not just about the product, which is why I enjoy it, because my life or my role is not just restricted to thinking about the patient in its, oh, how is my medicine going to work. It's about, okay, what exactly is this patient need? So we are really well placed to do that. We, as I said, we are experts in disease, we're experts in therapy area. We are best placed to enable patients to get these effective treatments and help identify unmet needs and address them. We are credible and unbiased. And what I mean by that is, one thing I am very proud of being in medical affairs is, although we work in a commercial environment, one advice I had received very early on in my career is, Mayura, you're a medic by heart and always stay a medic by heart. And what that means is, I can't forget, like, my job in this role is to make sure that I always keep the patient in front of me. And that's why I'm always unbiased. If somebody says something to me, I'm more than happy to question them and have that very challenging conversation about, but this is not going to be the best result for the patient. So I think that's why medical affairs are very unbiased function, because we are very close to patients than the market. And that's why we come across like a very credible function, because we are science experts. And that's why we are able to generate trust and collaboration. I think collaboration is one word probably you will hear throughout the next 3 days, because all these functions that work in the pharmaceutical industry, none of them can function by themselves. We all have to collaborate with each other. There is no way I can sit in my own box and not work with marketing or market access, because I will not be able to achieve all the wonderful things that I do. So collaboration is a key word for everyone in pharmaceutical industry. And these are some of the activities we do, making sure it's all patient-centric. Digital health is something which is coming in more and more. Just kind of we have digital apps for patients so that they can obviously have record their functions or record their blood results or some whatever it is, depending on the therapy area. And then patient care experience, again, something which is very newly coming is, we do, I think few years back, we weren't doing a lot of patient-centric activities. But now we are doing targeted patient-centric activities. So doing surveys with patient organizations, understanding what is the need for the patients, and then actually bringing it back into the company and saying, actually, patients don't want this. We need to do something very different, because our end user, our main consumer, is not the healthcare professional. Our consumer is the patient, because the healthcare professional is just a means to get your medicine to the patient, but your medicine is never used by the healthcare professional, it's used by the patient. So it's important to keep that in mind, that our consumers are the patients. So we need to do things for them. Some of the challenges, compliance, although it's really important, because we need to have some form of governance in place. Sometimes it can be very, very difficult to interpret, especially in the UK. The code is not black and white. There are many gray areas, and then it comes down to interpretation. And depending on where you are in your experience of medical affairs, you are a little less and less pragmatic. So you are less averse to taking risks. So you are taking everything which is like a very risk averse approach. And that can be a little bit complicated when you're having conversations with especially your marketing colleagues, but it's a challenge that we face. And it's also the understanding of compliance is patchy across different functions. And it's almost felt like medical affairs is the police officer. We are the owners of compliance, which is not true, because we are all working in the pharmaceutical industry. And the code is for the industry, it's not for the medical affairs team of the industry. So I think the understanding of who owns compliance also causes problems. Converting data into usable or actionable things for marketing. I think this is a very important one, might be very specific for UK. In the UK, we cannot use anything which is outside of our SMPC or outside of our product indication in marketing materials, because essentially it's considered to be off-label. And then the marketing or the sales team cannot talk of any off-label products or any off-label things in your product. So when you're putting an RWE plan together, you have to really bear that in mind. Like, how is this going to be able to move the boat for the marketing team? So it's just something that we have to constantly bear in mind. But everybody knows that when a drug comes out, doctors will do weird and wonderful things. They will kind of use it in different indications, they will use it in different doses, and they go by their experience and their habits. So I think it's just kind of something to bear in mind when you're putting your RWE plan together. Because I said medical affairs is a scientific expertise, skills function, it's very difficult for us to prove return on investment, because compliance wise, at least in the UK, I can't say that just because my field MSL was having a conversation with a healthcare professional, we increased the sales by 2%. I can't say that. So it's very difficult to constantly prove the return of investment on any activities that we do, because we can't bring it back to the monies. So we have to show value in different ways. There are different ways, but I think most of the world always thinks about the money, and we can't prove return of investment on the money. Because we do so many things that I have talked about for the last almost 15-20 minutes, there is a fatigue. We are mostly very, very lean functions. So we do end up doing a lot of things. And I think the team's always kind of not able to kind of prioritize because the asks are too many. And as I said, that sometimes cross-functional collaboration can be tough because everybody has different needs. Nobody understands our priorities. Everybody's priorities are important. And then we have to essentially be able to kind of manage those expectations at various skills. Also, once we have worked with a cross-functional team, sometimes it's also difficult to get the follow through. Like we have worked with them on something, they go on, do that, but then never come back and actually give us the feedback on, was it helpful? Did it bring any value? So that could be a challenge. What we need to do to succeed is have a strategic vision and leadership, a forward-looking approach. Where are we going? We can't be working in our silos. How can we be a really strategic partner? You cannot forget digital. It's where the world is moving. AI is coming in real fast, so we can't be left behind. We have to think of how do we bring in innovation. We have to be the trusted partner. So how do we do that? We need to co-create solutions. We need to demonstrate value in everything that we do. We have to have a patient-centric approach. That's non-negotiable. And we have to deliver outcomes which will create impact. But it's also important to understand how we measure those KPIs. How do we measure that? How are we bringing value to our stakeholders? And as I said, in absence of being able to do that in return of investment from money's perspective, they have to be a little bit more creative. Where I see medical affairs evolution is we started by getting things right, doing the right things. Then we became more integrated into the different functions. We were respected for our input. We were almost moving towards the partner. So now I think we are in a phase, we're somewhere between integrated and partner in this stage, I believe. But we are coming to a stage where we can be a partner, where we are co-leading on strategy. We are co-building things within the company. And that is going to help us to actually show the impact that we can bring. How can we bring in that patient-centered approach? And I think eventually we want to become the leaders for future. How can we be the leaders to be able to bring the entire pharmaceutical industry into patient-centered approach? And I just love this quote. It's something which I absolutely believe is the right thing. Medicines is for the patient. Medicine is for the people. It's not for the profits. And I understand, again, as I say, we work in a commercial environment, but if we do the right things for of our patients, then the profits will follow. So always keep this quote in mind by George Merck. It's really, really helpful, and it will always make you think, how can I do the right thing? I think that's it from me. So I'm going to stop sharing and yeah, open the floor for questions.
Thanks, Dr. Mayura. That was really engaging and amazing. It was so nice, mesmerizing to hear you. So, with this, we open the floor for any questions. Please, guys, feel free to ask. We don't get to talk to Dr. Mayura so often, right? So, yeah.
Absolutely. Guys, please ask questions.
Yeah.
If there are no questions, means I did a good job.
Absolutely.
Anyways, Dr.
That's true.
Mayura, there's no question about this, right? So, yeah.
Do we have some questions, Rachna?
Yes, sir. We have a few questions, one or two. So, ma'am,
Please go ahead.
in influencing clinical and business decisions, how is medical affairs changing from a supporting role to a genuine strategic partner role?
A very good question. And I think this is where I said about the mindset. I think a lot of the mindset amongst our cross-functional colleagues is still that we are a supporting function. So we need to be able to partner. And I think this goes back to what I was saying about the insights and the stakeholders that we kind of work with. For us, it's really important because we are the bridge between R&D and marketing. So we know the entire journey for the product. So we can't undo that. No, we can't unsee that. So we need to be able to have those discussions. But it's also important to bear in mind, we are in a commercial environment. So we need to have the business acumen skills. It doesn't come naturally to a medic. Believe me, I have been on my own journey to develop those. So give yourself time to be able to understand the business acumen, learn from people, from mentors who are in marketing and market access who will help you learn it. But I think it's almost a combination of all of it. You have to make sure that you remember you're the bridge, you remember you're the scientific expert, and how what is the value that our marketing team or our company wants to get from this brand, which will also help the unmet need for the patients. So for us, the objective is always different. But the way I say to my team is, we're all having different functions, right? I'm wearing a medical hat, somebody's wearing a marketing hat. We are all coming from different places, but our objective is the same: getting the right treatment to the right patient. So even if we come from different roads, if we are meeting in the same junction, it's fine. I can be A and you can be B. It's how we respect each other. So just have that approach to collaborative working, understand what are the needs of our functions, our internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. But again, it's a skill that we have to develop as medics, as scientists, as a pharmacist, to be able to convert our skills into a language which is much more commercial. But you will get it over time. It's a very conscious effort though. So don't feel that if I'm not getting it, I won't get it. You just have to find the right people to support you. And that really helps. I had multiple mentors throughout my life. It hasn't come easy to me. So
Yes, ma'am. And we have a question from Akanksha Verma. Thanks for an insightful session, Dr. Mayura. Could you please share an example where early collaboration between medical affairs and market access leads stronger HTA or nice outcomes?
beautiful question. So actually, this goes back to when I first joined the industry, which is a long time ago now. And we were launching a drug which for a psoriatic indication. And my market access colleague said to me, that was the first launch in the company for a long time. So we really needed to understand how we needed to work, what we needed to involve in our modeling, what should be our kind of competitors in terms of which competitors to put in our modeling and things like that. So what we decided as a function is a really strong plan. Internal plan to like what will be my responsibility as a medic, what will be the market access responsibility, and how we're going to collaborate. My thing was I needed to get the insights from the healthcare professional, the experts. So I did an advisory board. We got some expert insights, and it was really, really insightful, because one of the advice we got from an expert is exactly what we use during our NICE submission. And I have to say, it normally doesn't happen. And anybody who's worked in the UK market will know NICE is really tough, because cost effectiveness doesn't come easy. I think, as Dr. Mukherjee said, they haven't changed the threshold for years. It was really difficult, but that, because we had used the experts' insights into our submission, we actually managed to get formularies, our drug onto the formularies, even before we had NICE. I don't know how that happens. It doesn't happen very often, but we did manage to get a drug on 2 formularies in the north, even before we had the NICE submission update come through. So it does help. But I think, again, it goes back to making sure that you work very closely with your cross-functional team to understand what's their objectives and how, as a medical team, you can bring the value. But yes, you have to be constant communication.
Yes, ma'am. And we have a question from Sakshi. What are the
Mhm.
skill sets required by a pharmacist who wants to be a part of medical affairs?
Very nice question again. So again, I think it goes back to what I've been saying. You have to first trust that you are a scientific expert, but you're not a police officer. And again, it goes back to this change in mindset. When you enter the industry, you will always be looked upon like, okay, you are going to tell me what is right and what is wrong. And you have to get away from that from day one, saying, no, it's not my role to police you. I am here to do a completely different job. So I think owning that you're the expert, but you're not somebody's parent in your workplace. We are all professionals here. But also, keeping that, as I said, the one advice I received when I joined the industry: you're a medic by heart. Don't forget that ever. So if you remember that my pharmacy background is always for making sure the patients are at the forefront, you keep that in your mind when you go into whichever industry, could be pharmaceutical or wherever, and you have to keep that in mind. But the skills you need to develop is this understanding of business acumen. You cannot get away without developing that, and that doesn't come easy to us medics, us scientists and pharmacists. But you have to have a really strong mentor to be able to help you get that. And if you get that business acumen, think about it, having that patient centricity, understanding of the business acumen, you are the best placed person in the entire industry to be able to give the right advice. So don't forget that you are a pharmacist. Your main function is to make sure the patients are cared for. But if you're joining a pharmaceutical industry, it's a commercial industry. What's the objective of my company? And how can I, as a pharmacist, bring value to them? But as I said, it's a journey. Find the right mentor for you, understand what they have done understand their experience, and I think you will get there. But don't do it yourself. Get a mentor. It becomes much easier when you speak to someone. And as I said, I do mentoring a lot in the UK. So if anybody wants to maybe have a chat with me, more than happy. You can get my email from Richa.
Thank you, ma'am. And Aditya is asking, HEOR or medical affairs, which is more relevant for PharmD students?
For which students, sorry? Pharmacy
PharmD,
students.
ma'am.
Yeah,
PharmD.
PharmD. They're asking HEOR or medical affairs, Dr. Mayura, which is more relevant?
Ooh, I don't want to fight with my colleagues here. We are in a collaborative function. Um, to be honest, like, I always believe that you need to define your own skills and then go into that. If you feel that I will be really well placed in kind of doing this whole modeling and, like, understanding of the competitor landscape to be able to put in a really good clinical overview in your HTA submission, then do that. Because as a PharmD student, I'm pretty sure you actually are able to do everything, because again, your science background helps you. So yeah, but there's no right or wrong answer. It really depends on you. I will always say medical affairs, but then that won't be the right thing.
I mean, to each his own, Dr. Mayura, as you rightly said,
Exactly.
depends on where you want to go in your career. If the R, Python, Excel models interest you, then
Yes.
cost-effective analysis, if you understand the terminologies like ICER and everything, I mean, it's up to you. The horizon is
Yeah.
open wherever you want to go.
Yeah. And even if you don't understand it, believe me, you will understand it at some point, because
Exactly.
life is about learning.
Yes.
I didn't understand what ICER was when I joined my company, and within 3 weeks, I was told, okay, you have to give me your, you have to comment on the clinical overview of a NICE submission, and I was like, no idea what a NICE submission is. Although I was working in the NHS, never got involved with an HTA submission. So you learn things. It's not that you have to know a lot before you join the industry. But I'm hoping this conference is going to help you to at least get the basic skills ready when you do apply for that first job.
So in our morning session also, Dr. Mayura, we were talking about learning agility. So when we discussed about various career options and how can we progress in our respective careers, I think it's skill and will. Skill is something you develop on the way, but that willingness to learn comes from within, and you have to keep that spirit alive. So you can
Exactly. Totally agree.
Thanks. So, Rachna, in the interest of time,
Yes.
maybe we can thank Dr. Mayura. And Dr. Mayura, there are more questions. Maybe I'll get back to you on them. And
Yeah, no problem.
feel free to answer. Okay. Thank you
Perfect.
so much,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Mayura. Thank
Have
you.
a lovely day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mayura Deshpande, for the truly inspiring and insightful session. You have beautifully highlighted how collaboration and strategic partnerships shape the evolving landscape of medical affairs. Now we move on to our next topic for the day, trust by design, explainable, governed privacy, and first AI. We are joined by Dr. Pranab Pillai, the founder and CEO of Nutra Trial based in Singapore. With over 2 decades of experience in clinical research, biopharma operations, and digital innovation, Dr. Pillai has led large-scale global programs that bridge technology, data, and healthcare. Before founding NutraTrial, he spent more than 15 years at Covance,